I never believed in near-death experience stories until I died myself during the eclipse. My name is Dr. Sarah Chen, and I'm a 45-year-old astronomer who has spent the last 20 years studying the cosmos from observatories around the world. What happened to me on September 7th, 2025, during the blood moon eclipse, changed everything I thought I knew about reality. Have you ever wondered what happens when consciousness leaves the body? What I experienced during those 8 minutes of clinical death revealed that the DNA timeline we've been taught our entire lives is completely wrong. That everything we think we know about human origins has been deliberately hidden from us. What I'm about to share will challenge every scientific assumption you've ever held about the connection between genetics and consciousness itself. I've always been a person of science, someone who believes in what can be measured, calculated, and proven. My colleagues at the Mount Wilson Observatory knew me as the skeptic who would roll her eyes whenever anyone mentioned anything supernatural. During faculty meetings, when Dr. Martinez would talk about consciousness existing beyond the brain, or Professor Kim would share stories about her grandmother's psychic visions, I would smile politely, but internally dismiss it all as wishful thinking. My life was built around facts, data, and the beautiful predictability of celestial mechanics. I was born in San Francisco, raised by 2 physicist parents who encouraged my curiosity about the universe from an early age. By the time I was 12, I had my own telescope and was tracking Jupiter's moons. By 16, I was already accepted into MIT's astrophysics program with a full scholarship. My professors used to joke that I had stardust in my veins instead of blood. I've traveled to Chile's Atacama Desert to observe supernovas, spent months in Antarctica studying cosmic radiation, and worked directly with NASA on several deep space missions. My specialty was solar research, particularly studying how solar flares and coronal mass ejections affect Earth's magnetic field. I had published over 43 peer-reviewed papers and was considered one of the leading experts on solar-terrestrial interactions in the world. But there was something different about 2025. The James Webb Telescope had been sending back images that were making the entire astronomical community scratch their heads. We were seeing galaxies that appeared to be older than the universe itself, star formations that defied our current understanding of physics, and most puzzling of all, what appeared to be artificial structures in deep space that couldn't be explained by any natural phenomenon we knew. I remember sitting in my office at the observatory just 3 weeks before the eclipse, staring at these impossible images on my computer screen. My research assistant, Marcus, walked in with his usual afternoon coffee and found me completely absorbed in the data that was challenging everything I had learned in my career. "Dr. Chen, you've been staring at that same image for 3 hours," he said, setting down my cup. "What are you seeing that the rest of us are missing?" I pointed to a section of the image where what looked like a geometric pattern was clearly visible among the stars. "This structure here, Marcus, it's perfectly symmetrical. Nature doesn't create perfect symmetry on this cosmic scale. This is either the most incredible coincidence in universal history, or we're looking at something that was intelligently designed." Marcus leaned over my shoulder, adjusting his glasses as he studied the screen. Designed by who? And why would it be out there? That was the question that had been keeping me awake for weeks. Think about it. What if the universe isn't just a random collection of matter and energy? Everything I had learned in my 20-year career told me that what I was seeing was impossible. But the data didn't lie. There were massive structures out there in the cosmic void that appeared to be artificial, and they were incredibly ancient, older than Earth, older than our solar system, possibly older than our galaxy itself. My personal life was as organized and predictable as my professional work. I lived in a comfortable house in Pasadena with my husband David, a software engineer who shared my logical, scientific worldview. We had been married for 12 years, and he understood my passion for astronomy even when it meant I would disappear for days at a time during important celestial events. David and I would spend evenings on our back deck, him coding on his laptop while I made observations with my personal telescope. We would discuss the latest discoveries from various space missions or debate theories about dark matter and dark energy over dinner. Our life was comfortable, rational, and completely grounded in the physical world. My sister Jennifer, a nurse practitioner in Los Angeles, would constantly tease me about being too focused on distant stars when there was so much beauty and mystery right here on Earth. She was always trying to get me to explore meditation or yoga or some kind of spiritual practice. "Sarah, you spend all your time looking at the cosmos, but you never look inward," she would say during our monthly coffee dates. "There's an entire universe inside human consciousness that you're completely ignoring." I would laugh and tell her that I found all the wonder I needed looking through a telescope at the infinite beauty of space. The stars were my cathedral, I used to say, and physics was my religion. I genuinely believed that consciousness was nothing more than electrical impulses in the brain, and when the brain died, everything simply went dark forever. What I didn't know then was that the universe was about to prove me spectacularly wrong. September 7th, 2025 would become the day that changed everything. I had been tracking this particular eclipse for over 3 years. It wasn't just any eclipse, it was going to be what astronomers call a blood moon super eclipse, combined with a rare planetary alignment. The moon would pass through Earth's shadow, turning deep red, while simultaneously Jupiter, Mars, and Venus would align in what ancient astronomers called a grand celestial conjunction. This type of combined event happened perhaps once every few centuries, and I had calculated that the optimal viewing location would be Mount Wilson, away from city lights, with perfect atmospheric conditions for observation and measurement. I had spent months preparing for this night, calibrating specialized equipment, coordinating with colleagues around the world, and setting up measurement devices that would record electromagnetic fluctuations during the eclipse. This wasn't just observation for me. This was going to be groundbreaking research into how rare celestial alignments might affect Earth's magnetic field and potentially even human consciousness itself. Little did I know that I was about to become the subject of my own research. David had been worried about me going up to the mountain alone with all that expensive equipment. "Sarah, you're going to be up there all night by yourself in the middle of nowhere. What if something goes wrong with the car or you have an accident with all that heavy equipment?" I kissed his forehead and smiled confidently. "Honey, I've done this hundreds of times. Besides, this is literally a once-in-a-lifetime event. I need complete focus to capture everything properly, and you know how distracting it can be when people are talking during delicate observations. Just promise me you'll check in every few hours so I know you're safe," he said. Though we both knew that once the eclipse began, I would be completely absorbed in my work. The drive up Mount Wilson on the evening of September 6th was absolutely beautiful. The sun was setting, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and deep purples. I felt that familiar excitement building as I wound up the mountain roads, knowing I was about to witness something truly extraordinary. I arrived at my carefully chosen observation site just as the last light was fading from the western horizon. I spent the next 4 hours methodically setting up my equipment, 2 high-powered telescopes, one for direct visual observation and one connected to my digital imaging system, a spectrometer to analyze the light spectrum during the eclipse, and several electromagnetic sensors to measure field fluctuations. By midnight, everything was perfectly calibrated and ready. The moon was just beginning its approach to Earth's shadow, and I could already feel that sense of cosmic anticipation that always came with major celestial events. There's something profoundly humbling about watching the mechanics of the solar system play out in real time, these massive objects dancing through space according to gravitational laws that have governed the universe for billions of years. There's something profoundly humbling about watching the mechanics of the solar system play out in real time, these massive objects dancing through space according to gravitational laws that have governed the universe for billions of years. As the eclipse began, I was taking measurements and photographs every 30 seconds, documenting every phase of the moon's journey into Earth's shadow. The moon was gradually transforming from its normal silver color to that characteristic deep red that gives blood moons their dramatic name. Then I noticed something that made my scientific mind race. Something was unusual about this particular eclipse. My electromagnetic sensors were picking up readings that I had never encountered in over 2 decades of solar observation. The numbers on my screens were fluctuating in patterns that didn't match anything in the scientific literature I had memorized. Imagine watching your instruments detect something that science says shouldn't exist. I called my colleague, Dr. Patricia Williams at JPL. Pat, are you monitoring these electromagnetic readings? My sensors are showing fluctuations that are completely off our predictive models. Sarah, we're getting similar anomalous readings at monitoring stations across the entire continent. Whatever's happening during this eclipse, it's affecting Earth's magnetic field in ways we've never documented. The patterns are unlike anything we've seen before. I hung up and refocused on my observations with renewed intensity. The moon was now deep in totality, glowing like a giant red eye suspended in the star-filled sky. The alignment with Jupiter, Mars, and Venus was absolutely perfect, creating a celestial configuration that wouldn't be visible again for another 187 years. At exactly 2:09 a.m., as the eclipse reached its absolute peak, I was looking through my primary telescope when I felt a strange tingling sensation spreading across my chest. Initially, I thought it was just the adrenaline and excitement of witnessing such an extraordinary event, but the tingling quickly intensified into a sharp, crushing pain. I stepped back from the telescope and pressed my hand to my chest. The pain was becoming unbearable, radiating down my left arm and up into my jaw. Even through my scientific focus, I immediately recognized these classic symptoms. I was having a massive heart attack at the precise moment of the eclipse's peak. My first thought wasn't fear, it was frustration. Of all possible times for this medical crisis to occur, why now? Why during the most important astronomical observation of my entire career? I reached for my phone to call for help, but the pain was so intense that my hands were shaking uncontrollably, and I watched helplessly as it tumbled down the rocky slope. I tried to steady myself against my equipment, but my legs were becoming weak and unsteady. The pain in my chest felt like someone was crushing my heart in a giant fist, squeezing tighter with each irregular heartbeat. I could feel my pulse becoming erratic, skipping beats, then racing frantically, then slowing to an almost imperceptible rhythm. I looked up at the blood moon one final time, its deep red glow seeming to pulse in perfect synchronization with my failing heart. Everything I had worked for, everything I had studied and catalogued and published, suddenly seemed meaningless compared to this simple biological crisis happening in my chest. Then, as the eclipse reached its absolute peak at exactly 2:09 a.m., my legs gave out completely. I collapsed beside my telescope, my face turned upward toward the impossible beauty of the eclipsed moon surrounded by perfectly aligned planets. The crushing pain in my chest stopped abruptly. Everything stopped. The gentle night breeze, the humming of my electronic equipment, even my own labored breathing. There was a moment of complete silence, complete stillness, as if the entire universe had suddenly paused to witness what was about to happen. What happened next changed everything I thought I knew about reality. As the paramedics rushed me to the hospital and the medical team fought to save my life, as the last breath left my lungs and my heart monitor went silent, I expected darkness. I expected nothing. What I didn't expect was to find myself standing in my hospital room, looking down at my own lifeless body as the medical team frantically worked to revive me. But I wasn't alone. As I left my body, I realized there was a presence with me, a being of pure light and love that I had never encountered before. The hospital room began to fade, and I found myself moving through what I can only describe as a tunnel of swirling stars and galaxies. But these weren't the distant points of light I had studied through telescopes my entire career. These were living, breathing entities of consciousness, each one pulsing with knowledge and wisdom beyond anything I had ever imagined. Picture the most beautiful symphony you've ever heard, then multiply that by infinity. That's what this tunnel felt like. It wasn't dark like I had read in other accounts. It was filled with colors that don't exist in our visible spectrum, sounds that resonated not in my ears, but in my very soul. Then everything changed. I emerged into what I can only call a cosmic library, a place where knowledge itself seemed to exist as a living, breathing entity. The being of light that had guided me here took on a more distinct form, though still radiant beyond description. I knew somehow that this was a divine messenger, sent to show me truths that would forever change how I understood our existence. You have spent your life studying the stars, the being communicated to me, not through words, but through direct transmission of thought and emotion. But you have never seen the true story written in your own DNA. Suddenly, the space around us transformed into what I can only describe as the most advanced holographic display I had ever witnessed. But this wasn't technology as we understand it. This was creation itself, showing me its secrets. Timeline after timeline appeared before me, each one more shocking than the last. Your scientists believe they understand human origins, the being continued. They speak of a single exodus from Africa, of linear evolution, but the truth is far more extraordinary. What I saw next completely shattered everything I thought I knew about human history. The timeline showed not one, but multiple waves of human expansion from Africa, beginning not 70,000 years ago, as science teaches, but over 52,000 years ago. The genetic evidence was displayed before me like a living map, showing populations that existed and thrived in ways that completely contradicted our textbooks. But that wasn't the most shocking revelation. The being showed me DNA sequences, genetic markers that science has detected but never fully understood. These mysterious populations that your geneticists find traces of, the being explained, they were not primitive. They were advanced in ways your current civilization cannot comprehend. They understood the connection between consciousness and genetics, between spirit and matter. Think about what this means. What if our DNA is more than just biological code? What I discovered next about these genetic patterns will completely change how you think about human potential. As the cosmic library transformed around me, I watched the holographic display reveal genetic patterns that defied everything I had learned in my scientific training. Human DNA that carried not just biological information, but encoded memories, wisdom, and connections to consciousness itself. The being showed me how certain genetic markers were specifically designed to activate during times of spiritual awakening, how our DNA is literally programmed to expand our consciousness under the right conditions. The pride of modern science blinds you to these truths, the being continued. Your technology can detect these genetic anomalies, but your materialistic worldview prevents you from understanding their true purpose. You see the evidence but refuse to accept what it means. The revelation hit me like a cosmic wave. All my years of studying the universe through telescopes, all my attempts to understand our place in the cosmos through pure science, and here I was, being shown that the greatest mysteries were encoded within us all along. Our DNA isn't just a blueprint for our bodies. It's like a cosmic hard drive, storing the memory of civilizations that existed long before recorded history. It's a library of cosmic memory, a connection to consciousness that transcends space and time. As the visions continued, I began to understand why this revelation was being shown to me during my eclipse experience. The eclipse wasn't just a celestial event I had traveled to observe. It was a cosmic alignment that had triggered something within my own genetic code, something that allowed me to access these higher realms of consciousness and receive this profound truth. This is why you were called to witness the eclipse, the being revealed. The cosmic alignments don't just affect the planets and stars. They affect the consciousness encoded within your DNA. You were meant to receive this knowledge and share it with others who are ready to understand. The implications were staggering. If human DNA contains these coded memories and connections to higher consciousness, then we are not just evolved animals struggling for survival on a random planet. We are cosmic beings with a divine heritage, carrying within our very cells the memory of advanced civilizations and spiritual knowledge that has been intentionally hidden or forgotten. The being showed me more genetic evidence that our scientists have discovered but struggle to explain. Populations in the genetic record that appear and disappear mysteriously. DNA signatures that suggest interbreeding with unknown human variants. Genetic markers that activate during meditation, prayer, and spiritual experiences. All of this evidence has been staring us in the face, but our scientific paradigm simply cannot accommodate these truths. The separation between science and spirituality is an illusion created by limited thinking, the divine messenger explained. True science and true spirituality point to the same truth. Consciousness is not produced by the brain. Consciousness uses the brain as an interface, but it originates from the field of pure awareness that connects all things. What I'm about to share next will reveal exactly how this cosmic connection works in ways that science is only beginning to understand. The being's next revelation fundamentally shifted my understanding. Imagine if your brain wasn't creating your thoughts, but receiving them like a radio antenna tuning into cosmic frequencies. As this cosmic education continued, I felt my entire worldview transforming. Everything I had believed about human origins, about the nature of consciousness, about the relationship between science and spirit, was being rewritten in real time. The being showed me how this genetic memory could be activated in anyone willing to open their minds to these possibilities. The DNA evidence is already there in your scientific literature, the being emphasized. The genetic studies already show these mysterious populations, these unexplained markers, these consciousness-related sequences. The evidence supports what I am showing you. Your scientists simply lack the spiritual understanding to interpret what they have discovered. This experience taught me that science and spirit aren't enemies locked in eternal conflict. They are complementary aspects of a greater truth that our limited human perspective struggles to encompass. The genetic evidence for our cosmic heritage is already accumulating in laboratories around the world. The consciousness DNA connection is already being studied by researchers who are brave enough to venture beyond materialistic assumptions. As the vision began to fade and I felt myself being pulled back toward my physical body, the being left me with one final revelation. The eclipse was not the end of your journey of discovery. It was the beginning. You will return to your body with this knowledge, and you will share it with those who are ready to understand. The cosmic alignments are accelerating, and more people will begin to access these genetic memories and consciousness expansions. I felt myself moving back through the tunnel of living stars, back toward the hospital room where my body lay waiting. As I returned to physical form and drew my first breath back in this world, I knew that everything had changed. I was no longer just an astronomer studying distant stars. I was a bridge between scientific discovery and spiritual truth, carrying within me the genetic memory of our cosmic heritage. When I opened my eyes and saw the medical team celebrating my return to life, I realized that my near-death experience during the eclipse had given me more than just a glimpse of the afterlife. It had revealed the truth about our origins, our DNA, and our connection to consciousness itself. The genetic evidence that science is uncovering isn't just data to be catalogued and filed away. It's proof of our divine heritage, our cosmic purpose, and our potential for spiritual evolution. This transformation didn't happen overnight, but it fundamentally changed how I approach both science and spirituality. I now understand that the universe isn't just a collection of matter and energy following predictable laws. It's a conscious entity that has encoded its wisdom and memory within the very DNA of every human being. We are not separate from the cosmos. We are the cosmos becoming aware of itself through conscious experience. Every time you look up at the stars, you're not just observing distant objects, you're recognizing your cosmic family. Think about what this means for how we understand our origins, our purpose, and our potential as human beings. If our DNA carries the memory of advanced civilizations and consciousness itself, then every person on this planet has access to wisdom and capabilities that transcend what we consider normal human limitations. The genetic studies are already providing the evidence. Mysterious populations appearing in our ancestry, unexplained markers that activate during spiritual experiences, consciousness-related sequences that science can detect but struggles to explain. We just need the spiritual understanding to interpret what science is discovering. The evidence was always there in the data I had studied for decades. I just needed to expand beyond my materialistic worldview to understand what it truly meant. Remember, we are not separate from the cosmos. We are the cosmos becoming aware of itself through conscious experience. This truth is encoded in every cell of your body, waiting to be activated when you're ready to receive it. I want you to consider this possibility as you go about your daily life. When you look at the genetic research coming out of laboratories around the world, when you read about mysterious human populations and unexplained DNA markers, remember that science and spirituality might be pointing toward the same incredible truth about who we really are. What if the next breakthrough in human evolution isn't technological but spiritual, learning to access the cosmic memory already encoded within us? Take a moment to reflect on your own relationship with both science and spirituality. Have you ever experienced moments where consciousness seemed to transcend the physical during meditation, prayer, or times of profound insight? Those moments might be glimpses of the genetic memory I encountered during my near-death experience. Share your thoughts about science and spirituality in the comments below. Do you think there's truth to the idea that consciousness and DNA are connected in ways we're only beginning to understand? What would it mean for humanity if we could access the genetic memories encoded within our cells? This is a conversation that could change everything about how we see ourselves and our place in the universe.